Hello and welcome. You're with the Smart Gamer Live Community Town Hall. I have with me the lovely Puka. Yeah,
I
that's
do it.
you.
I do it.
That's you.
I do it. It's me.
I have
When
Zazeb
I
with
think
me as well, and Malice. Hello,
when
gentlemen.
I think
Hey,
lovely, I think Puka's beard.
You think
Oh,
Puka's beard?
thank you. Thank
hey,
you.
Zeb's like actually starting to get color again in the face and not look like he's got skin.
Undead.
So the lovely Puka's beard. So what does that make Puka
Yeah.
then?
I am simply
The face
servant.
holder.
Yeah,
Face
I'm
holder.
just a servant of my beard. It is
servant
it's
of
the
your
will.
beard.
It is the way of my life.
It's kind of like a cat owner. They're not really a cat owner. The cat owns them.
Yes, the beard does own me.
So Puka, one of these days on stream we need to be able to see your cat because we see the thing in the background.
Have we not? Have we not seen it on stream yet?
No, we haven't
It'll
seen it
happen.
on
You
stream.
brought it in.
Not
I've got to
live.
be able to find the cat. I got to be able to find the cat. That's the other problem. That cat.
And then the wife has to let you take it to the
That's
That's
also
going to be
true.
the worst part.
And then I'm gonna get clawed. I can move that cat for 5
Question.
seconds by the cat. I don't think she'll mind too much.
You know,
The
they
wife
got a
does.
point in chat. Twitch kittens equals instant ratings.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Cats have staff. Thank you, Anto. So today we're kind of switching it up. We're going to talk about games that will be releasing either this year or next year. Games that have big, huge releases coming out or re-releasing of games, just because there's a lot happening. And it's not stuff that we've addressed from a leadership and community standpoint. Why would we take our communities to these games? What do we think about these games? The good, the bad, and the malice. I mean, the ugly. So without further ado, since most of our people kind of come from Camelot Unchained, gentlemen, why don't we start there and be nice? Because yes, we are still waiting for them to release it, but is Camelot Unchained still a viable game for you all in your communities?
So, Camelot Unchained at its core interests my community, because it is heavily PvP focused, but more importantly, it is actually built an engine to support that idea. It is something that like games like Crowfall and whatnot have created really good hype and really interesting concepts, but they launched initially on Unity Engine, and everybody was like, "Yep, have fun trying to get more than 50 players together on Unity Engine without causing so much lag that it hurts." So Camelot Chain started from the most important focus, which is we want 500 people slugging it out in a giant field. Let's build an engine around that.
And we all went, yay, let's go kill each other.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the greatest thing. I mean, honestly, I am going to assume. I mean, Michelle is an excellent artist, but I feel that the graphics are going to be lacking overall compared to a modern title.
But they've never said otherwise. They've always said that their graphics are going to be what they are.
Well, and
it's not what
something
their
I'll
focus
speak
is.
to on that is, and we have always had this allure of these high Unreal Engine, specifically Unreal Engine, because it's really been the top end of graphic fidelity and what people can do with that.
It's just unreal.
But we've always been drawn to those games, and they have essentially a lot been Asian theme or Asian titles that really focus on that high end graphic fidelity, and that gameplay is just very empty. And I can attest to playing, my experiences in Camelot Unchained already. The that graphic fidelity that's present, it fades away. It's like you don't even notice it because you get so tied up in the fun of the gameplay that's already existent, and it's just moving that to live, like, oh my goodness, I can't wait.
And having your butt kicked by Bumble every time you get on a test.
But it's one of those things where you want it on paper. You're like, yes, I want a game to look. It needs to look what AAA titles look like today, or we want MMOs to look like AAA titles 3 years ago, right? But it's like the reality is that's not necessary. What you need is the components in place to visually understand what's happening on the game field. You need to be able to see what spells are being cast. You need to be able to see what classes people are or what gear they're wearing based off visual elements that are presented in real time. But beyond that, like a lot of that individual flair kind of fades away into the movement of the masses amount of people moving around on field. You don't have time to be like, look at that guy's cloak. That's awesome. Did you see that guy's cloak? It's like that just fades.
Well, on the other hand, I would like to fall back to kind of a Dark Age of Camelot idea, which is that cloaks were everything. Your cloaks and your shields were your identity. You lived on your armor color and your cloak because no one could see your name and no one knew who you were except for Thane of
and I did
Midgard,
me choosing cloaks was definitely a poor example. And maybe I should say something along the tunes of shoulder pads or chest piece, because cloaks were a big part of identity. And I did appreciate that, especially in a game like Dark Age.
So given that they are focusing much more on the engine, not the graphics, is this still something? We still don't have a release date. We have really no clue, although we have many suspicions that it will probably be sometime next year, maybe. Is this still something that your communities are hyped for? Is this still something that we're going to be charging into with our swords held high? And
yes, because the potential for what they were saying in the last segment, the potential for mass combat is unlike anything outside of Lineage that I've ever seen. Even my favorite game, Shadowbane, could only withstand so many characters in the same frame and small area. It was just this is insane. What I've seen in the test engines is just unlike anything I've ever seen before.
they've done a really good job with the massive amounts of people and NPCs on the screens in the tests.
And I have to give them respect. Respect for taking the initiative and not copping out like so many other companies have done when it's obvious that the intent is not to exploit that name. The intent is not to exploit Mark Jacobs' name. The intent is to be truthful, to form and create a spiritual successor of a game a lot of us hold dear in our hearts. And I think we do have to be cautious with nostalgia glasses and approaching this game, and I think we do have to be fair and allow it to be a completely new experience. But they have essentially promised, and we have seen evidence of the fact that they know what we loved, and they know the nostalgia hooks we have in our hearts about Camelot Unchained. We know those battles that we remember, and they are essentially they're staying true to allowing us to recreate, or we are allowing them, or they are creating a new sandbox for us to make new memories in, is essentially what I'm getting from this game. And I could ask nothing more from any game developer. That's everything I could ask for is, give us the tools to make those new memories.
So as community leaders, based on what we know so far and what they've given us for Camelot Unchained, as things have developed and as your communities have evolved over the years that we've been waiting for this game, what are some of the things that you think this game is going to do really, really well for communities in general? And what are you most excited about for your community specifically to experience within this game?
I'll take it first. Sure. Again, what I'm really excited for is I'm excited to see another developer come in with a true tri-faction system. I believe at this point that is very important. I believe it is crucial to the health of any static server, is you have to have at minimum 3 variables vying for power. At minimum. We've seen time and time again dual faction systems fail. I think there are the abilities to create additional factions on top, and that's okay. But at minimum, sticking with 3 is beautiful. So we're excited. Yeah, we're excited for that, and we're excited to see the communities that can come with that, and the loyalty that will be tied to that. That's something that I'm really excited about, having the opportunity, to be locked into a faction. I can't transfer. I can't change factions. Not having that option like WoW would give you, being locked in and being like, hey, these are you guys, you got to stick it through, you got to work it out with them. It's a dangerous move for a developer in 2019 to do, but it's a move that me as a player, I respect them for doing.
Do you think they'll change that later, like so many developers have?
I honestly do not believe they will change that later, but you know, you can come back here in 2023 and watch this and see. You know, I honestly don't. You know, I personally have a backed package that I cannot even create an account outside of TDD. You know, I can't create characters outside of TDD.
You're a lifelong tree hugger.
Give me those trees, mushrooms, baby.
I will say that MJ has created a history around, even if he allows cross-faction characters, all the other things like that, he has always stuck to whatever he has decided is the right thing to do. If he's like, this is how I'm watching this game, he tends to stick to that and focus on that. Unlike a lot of developers who will waffle on different ideas and just kind of go with the flow of whatever the fanboys want, he has always been, for better or for worse, locked in. He has his vision, and that's what he's going for. So I don't expect to see too much change from his vision in that idea, because he's learned from the problems we had on Dark Age and even some on Warhammer, where it was like, okay, we're have cross-faction spying and all this other stuff like that, and it became a bunch of like pointless, annoying drama. And removing that will what was it?
The spies in the channel. We've
the
all heard
spies
it.
in the channel.
We've all heard it.
They're coming for us. But that I think going along that lines, I mean, at least he'll profit off of someone having to have a second account. You know.
Well,
So-
and getting back to the root question,
There you go.
Before we hop subjects, is, you know, another element is I am really excited to bring our community into a game that is focused around players relying on each other. Okay, in other words, that was a nice soda pop there.
That was a soda.
In other words, having a title where you have a crafter class and you have a class that is dependent for things like escort, is dependent for things like having other people bringing them raw materials, but being a class that is totally necessary to the economy and the interworkings of the game and the progressing of this constant battle that we're having. Being able to lean on other people, I think, is something that's necessary to having a healthy community. Is you cannot be a jack of all trades. You cannot allow for somebody to do everything themselves. And when you force people to work together, it creates some of the best and most richest communities you've ever had the opportunity to play in. And I'm really excited about the potential. And I know there's going to be people that don't like that.
I wish more
ahead,
communities would take, well, not more communities, more gaming devs would see interdependence as a strength and not a weakness. Because pretty much what developers say is, well, the solo player will do this and the group player will do this, and we're going to have two different lines. Don't have two different lines. Have an interweaving line that basically connects all your players together in some manner. Yes. Well, I'm teasing. Nothing's going to change about that little dance.
Zeb, congratulations. You are a GIF now that will be in the Twitch channel when we get to the next level here.
But I think, and in response to what you're saying, Zeb, it depends on the experience I think you're trying to ship. I think there's a lot of companies that want to develop a very nuanced theme park experience. They want to tell that story. They want the player to experience that story, and they want them to be able to experience it by themselves, or maybe have a friend join at some point, or maybe experience aspects that they have to play with 5 other people. I think it depends on the experience you're trying to ship. And obviously, it is very safe for a developer to package up and ship a experience that one person can experience the entirety of the game by themselves. And you can't argue that that's not successful, because you have a game like World of Warcraft in existence.
But for how long?
Well, yeah, that remains to be seen. But I think I think what's important is you have to ask yourself is what experience do you want to create? And I think the devs at City State have asked themselves that question. And you know,
They're very dialed in at exactly what they want.
Yeah, and that's what's awesome, is because they're not promising. The problem is we see these other titles promise to cater to the experience we're after, and it is
400 different experiences.
Correct. It's an afterthought, and
we'll
it's an
jump
afterthought
to
of an
those other
afterthought.
titles here in a minute. Let me
Yeah.
ask you one more question directly related to CU, and then we'll jump to one of those titles that I just know you guys are going to go off on. Down, boy. With CU,
Malice smiling scares children, by the way. I just wanted to let you know that. Not a natural thing.
it scares some of his guild members too.
State.
With CU, do you think there's going to be an issue with people coming back expecting to make memories similar to what they made in Dark Age of Camelot? And will they be disappointed given that this is not the same game?
I'll jump
they
on
will be
that.
disappointed.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to soon jump to another title that we can harp on that a lot more, but especially you have to approach all these with an understanding that, listen, you have this memory and you're chasing an experience that brings back to that nostalgic moment. But that nostalgic moment is layered and layered and layered in your psyche under a lot of other parts of your character that has developed over time. And when you think back on this moment, you are always looking at it with a pair of rose-colored glasses. And that's just the nature of what this is. Now, what I think is important to understand is if you come into the game with that understanding, you can check your expectations at the door, and you can experience a game that allows you to create similar experiences and memories. And a lot of it, especially for us that have matured as gamers, a lot of it is not necessarily about us creating those memories, but now I think a lot of it as leaders is our responsibility of creating a place for other younger gamers to create these experiences as well. I think it's a very important thing. And when I think back of a lot of experiences I had, they have significant influences of who I am and developed as my character. And I think it's important to allow or create a place where other people, much younger gamers too, can develop these experiences and have these experiences as well. I think that's a good goal, and I think it's a great goal to have as a community.
Well, in our position as leaders, the point is people are looking at us to guide them on it's complicated. Which game will provide them? Yeah,
It's complicated. No shit. But please let us.
But the point is that we have to look out for more than just the rose-colored glasses portion. If you have to look beyond that, and you have to respect that people want that rose-colored experience. So there's both things that you have to account for when you're looking at a game like ArcAge that is promising to dial back what made it wrong and push forward the parts that people like.
We're changing games now.
I guess we're going to ArcAge.
We're going to ArcAge.
Let the explosion go. Okay, so
We're
ArcAge
going
has got
full ArcAge. Let's do this shit.
ArcAge has got a large expansion that has come out and is going to hit its, for lack of a better term, its retail and then its re-release. And then the re-release is obviously something different than its retail version. So, thoughts on this? Are you guys going to go back to ArcAge? I know Malice has thought. Go, you got your hand up.
Let it fly, Malice.
All right. So we already are very active in ArcAge. We're currently on legacy servers.
I'll never go AA.
So my personal vision, we've had large ongoing debates about these this new server type. Basically, it's a fresh start. As far as we can tell, all it is the best money grab ever designed, which is we're not going to give you anything. We're going to have you pay for it all up front so that when you get mad 3 months in going, this isn't what I was hoping it was and dreaming it was going to be, they go, lol, we got your money, and you quit.
Now,
That's
Zeeb, hold on. Let me
really
take
what
this,
the
Zeeb.
game is going to be.
Let me take this, Zeeb.
Go right
let me
ahead.
take it.
Go right
Let me
ahead.
take it. I can tell. Just let me. Because listen, I'm very much on the fence. And I will tell you my understanding is that this is meant to be developed as a completely, or not developed, sorry, pitched as a completely separate game, separate experience. Obviously, content developed for live will be put into this. It is simply a new pricing model, which is buy to play, and they have a cosmetic. They have a season pass that everyone's part of, and then they have a paid like $10 for 3 months season pass that is supposedly only cosmetics, which this game has a lot of cosmetics. So they have a lot of content that they can pull from to put into these packs. I understand that. And so I will argue, if you are a person that did not like the fact that you had to go to the cash shop to get stuff done, that ArcAge Unchained does promise to be an experience that will alleviate that. Now, my question is, there are a lot of things built into the market of ArcAge, or into the economy of ArcAge, that were built around this cash shop. If these items are being removed from the cash shop, are they being put on vendors that I now have to spend my in-game currency for? I want to know how they're acquired. And that's ultimately what, a question I want an answer to. And on top of that, and then I'll let Zeeb, you can go to town. I will say my ultimate issue with ArcAge has always been that progression is gambling. At the end of the day, your time is your currency. I'm talking in this new Unchained. If we're getting rid of money as my currency, now time is my currency, and I'm essentially putting in a certain amount of time to do whatever is the most efficient grind, which can be calculated. That'll be on a spreadsheet somewhere. So I put X amount of time in to do an efficient grind, accrue whatever my in-game money is, purchase in the live player economy whatever items I need to upgrade my gear, and I'm rolling the dice on that upgrade.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. Sorry, Malice, I know you wanted to jump in there. You guys have played this game for years. You have done pretty much everything. There is no graphics update. There is no engine update. It is quite literally a re-release.
There are no dungeons put in the fucking game. The last dungeon has been put in 3 fucking years ago. They put in this new dungeon. The lazy ass bullshit was to pull the old dungeon, take a bunch of the bosses and put them in a linear line, as opposed to.
Now, hold on, we gotta let Zeeb talk. We gotta let him talk. We gotta let Zeeb defend it. We got to.
I'm not going to defend it, actually.
Okay.
What I'm going to say is this. What I'm going to say is this. You're right that it is a gamble. It's actually a gamble from the get-go. Are they going to keep their promises? And if so, we have to pay in.
Well, let me say, Zeeb, I'm not talking about a gamble of should I invest my money in the title. The gamble I'm speaking of comes 100% from upgrading my gear. I'm RNG rolling my dice to see if I roll that higher tier upgrade. That's my gamble that I don't like. So I'm sorry. Back to you. I'm sorry.
But the point being that the first gamble, even before your gamble, Puka, is the fact that you will be gambling on whether they keep their promises. Because you're right. A lot of the economy was based around the in-game cash shop. Now, no longer. How do they change those systems? You know what? I'm curious to find out. You want to know why? One simple reason why? All the other things, all the other things that we have talked about so far and we'll talk about afterwards are not out yet. If they're next generation. If they're not, they're games that are over 5 years old. So we either gotta give a chance to something to restart fresh and have a fresh start, or we can just continue to wait. But with lingering communities.
But you're going to essentially pay money up front, go in to do something that you've already done for years, and there's no difference on it.
Zaylin is coming from this from a standpoint of trying to keep community going, because again, we've talked about one of the biggest struggles is how do we keep our players playing together? And no, you are very much correct. Like, this is a no-brainer opportunity for people that enjoy the gameplay of ArcAge, because I don't care who you are. I definitely would argue that ArcAge, from a paper standpoint, when you list the features they have, I definitely argue that Arcade is probably one of the best MMOs ever created. When you look at how these things are implemented, when you look at how the problem is it's got such glaring issues from progression and from what I'll define, I mean, just Asia games. It's an Asia game. All right. And we've all played Asia games and they love their grind. And we don't appreciate a grind. And at the end,
that's probably the least problem of Arcade, though.
Well, it's the grind coupled with the gamble of your time. Like that grind is that time, but then when you take that time and you have your investment, I have my object. This is the sum of my grind, and I'm like, all right, I've got this sum. I need to expand it into a tangible upgrade. Correct, and it just goes poof. And you're like, the most rage I've ever felt while playing a video game has come from Arcade, but at the same time, it has also provided me with some awesome moments of just glee and like, woohoo, when we got to win. And maybe that's one of the costs, but I think I'd much rather feel rage coming from being outplayed than outsystemed. That's ultimately, that's my fear with Arcade. And I will 100%, I will sit by
over and over that guy over there can prove to be lucky as heck, and I roll the same dice and I blow up everything.
Sure, but I think this has potential to be a unique experience because we have not seen what this looks like without that top 5% of players, those whales. I want to know what Arcade looks like without whales.
But but we do. We created fresh start servers.
But those whales were still able to go in there and pump their money into that, right?
Okay. And where do you think whales get their money from?
Mama.
No.
I know.
Mama?
It's people that have money and they want to put this into their hobby.
No. I mean money in game. Where does that come from?
Gold sellers.
Apex.
Where is? Can I point the right direction? Oh, sorry. But no,
Zaylen.
it's not.
Okay.
No, yeah, try to point at Zaylen.
Hey,
sorry.
don't point at me. This was tabletop to keyboard and chat.
Yeah, no. But that's exactly true. Actually has nothing to do with Apex.
Okay.
Apex is where your low to mid range guy who's just trying to tweak his shit goes.
No, you're correct, and I'm speaking from the standpoint of staying within
gold. They're buying gold from gold farmers, and the fact that gold farmers are literally playing the game, and so like there are legitimate players who are running around. They're doing stuff. They're not just some Chinese bot in a corner somewhere, and then they go, "Hey, man, want to buy 10,000 gold?" Like it's like walking through the streets of Chicago. Hey, motherfucker, I want to buy some shit. Like, and
my God.
All 2 players in Chicago have now signed off.
Oh,
whatever, man. I'm from Chicago. Chicago represent. But
taking this.
But the reality is that you're talking about a system. So the only restrictor that they're going to put in this new launch is that they're going to make it so it's harder to have alts. You're not going to be able to have a bunch of alt accounts.
All they are doing
is
putting that behind a $30 initial pay up or around about. I think it's been speculated, but I think it's going to be around $30.
Right.
Take that for a grain of salt.
They're already paying their full subs on those things, and they want
farmers
labor coming back. So they don't care about $15 a month. Why would they care about $30 up front?
Correct. Yeah. Gold farmers would definitely be willing to pay that.
So like we stated,
you weren't going to start. Excuse me, guys. You weren't going to stop gold farmers in any fashion. I mean that's a fool's dream. They will get in. They will get in.
But you can limit them. You can make it so that gold is so expensive that a lot of people can't afford it. It's all right. So this is like exploiting or anything else in a game. You're never going to stop it. It cannot be stopped. That's just a fact.
Right.
If you can reduce it enough that the few people that do it are not massively impacting your game, you've won. So if Bob wants to swipe all day and buy all this gold and risk having an account banned and do all this stuff, and he somehow slips through all the cracks and he does it, who cares? That's not who you're worried about. You're worried about whole guilds dual wielding credit cards going.
Well,
I'm
I think
winning!
the challenge. I think
Well,
the
yeah.
challenge is when devs try to combat gold farming. What do they often do? They put in a token currency that is a monthly sub, that can also be sold to other players, right? So that's what a lot of devs are like. This is our way of combating gold sellers. We're going to sell gold. Buy from us, right? That's essentially what they're doing.
Well, it
Um,
also offers free to play for people
well,
who don't want to
and that's
pay
correct.
money at all.
But that's where the problem is when they have a system like that in place. That means you have to make it so hard to get a substantial amount of gold any other way that if you want to combat gold sellers, that people would just go and buy this token instead, right? And that's what I think is the ultimate issue with combating it that way. Frankly, people just need to be more adamant about tracking how people act and earn gold.
Yeah, I'm not wild about the company spending dev time on these type of things on a system that's going to happen if you set it up like Malice was talking about. If you set it up where it's easy, then it will happen. But even if it sets up if it's hard, it will still happen. So the problem is, to me, is whether or not you're setting up systems that reward player ingenuity and interconnectivity. It doesn't matter if there's gold sellers, to be honest with you. It doesn't really matter. It matters. It only matters if and only if it's affecting your in-game economy. And usually it doesn't. But usually it doesn't
Our
in
game's
a
just
large way.
founded on a swiping economy. I mean, it is so integral to the economy in ArcheAge. It's
Correct,
ridiculous.
which is why I want to see what Unchained looks like, and which is why it is I really just want to see what happens.
I want to make one more point that a lot of people kind of miss in the grand scheme of this conversation, which is that this decision is being made by Gamingo. Gamingo is simply the North American server holder currently of the game. Therefore, the only power that Gamingo, just like Tryon, had was its pay system. It can determine what's in the shop. It can determine how you pay for it. Other than that, they can only ask and recommend to XL Games what they want for actual real mechanics in the game, which, for the most part, get vetoed by XL. As such, XL Games has a game that is designed around how things work in Korea. Because of that, we don't get to fix the real problems that are currently in the game. The fact that they've screwed up trading, the fact that they've screwed up PvP, the fact that they're removing player nations, the fact that they're doing all these other things. Gamingo has no control over any of that. And so when Gamingo says, we're going to launch this new server that does this new thing, you have to accept the reality that Gamingo has zero control of the game other than what happens in the cash shop.
No, you're very correct. You're very correct.
Bringing us back to the community aspect and why we're here, Puka, are you going to be taking your people into AA?
That is a question mark. That depends on what my people won't. It is a game I personally would like to look at if there's not too big of a buy-in. Because listen, if it's $30, I got $30. I bought $30 right now. If it's not a big buy-in, absolutely. But it's one with all these things that have lofty promises. I'm absolutely just going to chill, hang out, and look at trusted reviewers and see what they say. The big problem and the big question mark of ArcheAge is obviously if you're not there day one, you've missed out on all the land. So good luck. So that's
completely true.
Which is why this is scary.
Well, especially since everyone is now going to be a patron.
Yeah, which is why this is extremely scary from a standpoint of initial launch, and which is why I think a lot of transparency should be expected from Gamingo. A humongous amount of transparency with specifics listed about what's going to be different. And if it's not, then I think you should pass on this title, because the problem is if you don't have all the information up front ready to go day one launch time, then you're going to be at a disadvantage in this game. Because ultimately with how land works, and it's a big problem with Arcade, is it's first come, first serve. If you're there and if you can keep logging in and keep producing tax certs, then whatever, you get to hold the land forever, no matter what. Like, so long as you can create tax certs, there's literally nothing anyone can do to stop you from holding that land. And all you have to do is log in and make tax certs.
Zeb, what about Pain Train? Are you guys going to be heading to Arcade? Will you be trying it out? Is this a game worthwhile for you?
Yes, we will. We will. Again, nothing in the horizon worth talking about. Nothing for months at closest.
I can't blame you on that.
So what do we do with our communities? Do we continue to play single or small unit games, or do we try something out in that it's a chance? It's not that it's going to be correct 100%, and it's not going to live up to everyone's expectations. I know that, and what Malice said is absolutely true. Again, but the difference between I think what my perspective is and where Malice's is that he's already in it and he suffered from the developers' whims. I have not. I'll be very honest. But
so have you never played Arcade? Is that
I played it for 2 months. I played it for 2 months in the beginning.
Well, you're not unlike a lot of other communities that quit after 3 months.
The problem was that it was going pay to win, and I don't
correct.
feel that
they put
my time.
Everyone knows when Thunderstruck Trees went into boxes, it's like you're now selling what was our gold standard of the economy. Our economy was based on Thunderstruck Trees. That was what the economy was based on, and then they sold them, and they destroyed the economy.
So the fact
I'm going to rewind that time frame just before. Like, I just want to make this clear to our viewers that long before that, I had members of my guild who were swiping hard. Now, I did not approve swiping at the time. I thought that people who were buying, and I'm not talking about swiping in game. I'm not talking about buying Apex or doing those things like that. I'm talking about literally Chinese gold farmer kind of things. When they were buying gold farms, they were refused to admit it, but our top crafters, our top everybody else were all buying gold, and they were buying it by hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And then going, why can't you keep up, guys? Well,
Listen, and I can attest, too, that we've had several members that, again, and I'm not going to say they don't have the self-control, but they spend hundreds of dollars. And I don't know. And their argument is like, hey, I got the money. I want to spend it. This is the game I'm playing right now.
And I can appreciate that.
Correct. Listen, like, you're an adult. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. But I know for me, like, when I'm spending dollars, I know the value of a dollar. And I know what they got for those hundreds of dollars, and it disgusts me that it was allowed to happen. And that's something.
Spent $15,000 on a year's worth of Arcade.
Listen, it's like
$1,000.
It absolutely disgusts me that was allowed to happen. And so, saying that, I understand exactly where Zeeb's coming from. And Zeeb, I'll tell you this much. I will say that from a standpoint of when I have fear of members getting in there and spending crazy amount of money, I think this game is the safest bet of members getting in there and not getting caught up in spending hundreds of thousands of dollars outside of gold sellers, because that market will definitely exist. And I understand too, when you're like, listen, we don't have a game and we want to play a game. No one should stop you, and you shouldn't feel bad about playing Arcade, right? Like, when you are needing a game, go play a game and feel. I think what's important is having level expectations.
Awesome. I can't argue.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just important.
I will totally agree that, like, getting away from the money aspect of
it's an amazing community game.
Yes.
The drama, the politics. It's like, oh yeah, it's a good game. The politics are amazing, and it's also great training for other games. If you've never had the opportunity to experience inner workings of guilds on that political level and having to manage the individual actions of your players because it has such ramifications against your guild name, that is a very important challenge. And anyone that hasn't experienced that, I would even recommend go play Arcade, because at worst, you're going to spend $30 for the first month, if the promise is true. If there's no cash up.
No, and even if there's no cash up, like that's actually the least of my problems. But like the end result on a positive note is to support exactly what you're saying is guilds can't talk as much shit as you would hope and dream because there's dominion function. I could take my guild on my own faction and say, you're a loudmouth asshole, Dominion, and smoke your bags for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, or I could just say, I'm going to be criminal and I don't care. I'm going to kill your guild on repeat everywhere I can find them.
The point is actions have ramifications.
Right.
It's nice to play a game where that
exactly
exists.
You don't have that immunity to just be like, I'm going to talk a bunch of smack and then like no one will hate me. I don't, because you can't do shit about it. See, I talk a bunch of smack, but people attack my guild and then they lose. So it works out.
All right, so we've beaten the snot out of AA. It sounds like everybody is just intrigued, but overall, it's
I think it exists for a certain person. I think a person in Zeeb's position, Zeeb, I say absolutely go for it and let us know what experience you're having. I think that's really important because I'm genuinely curious. Is ultimately what it comes down to.
So another game that is doing a massive re-release, just like ArcAge, is World of Warcraft, which happens to be hitting on Tuesday. I see Puka has some strong feelings about that.
I don't.
I know I have some friends that to say that they're excited about this game is like the understatement of the year. So what do you guys feel about World of Warcraft, and is it worth the going back to Classic?
So I believe that I'm going to open this up. I believe that the conversation has been already stated about rose-colored glasses.
Excuse me, I'm being corrected. It's releasing tomorrow, not Tuesday. Sorry, my bad.
Releasing tomorrow.
I found a player right there. Look at it.
And tomorrow.
Are you going to be a rogue?
Just so you all know, I actually got text messages just now telling me I'm wrong. It's releasing tomorrow.
Wow, that's awesome. Nice
technology today, sir.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Exactly what it is.
The end result is that this is a total rose-colored buy-in. The reason why the first expansion changed the game dramatically was because 40-man raids is a stupid idea.
Why?
Why? Because most guilds cannot actually do that. The fact that you leave 1% of the game to try to be competitive and everyone else gets to fuck off, that sucks.
Now
okay, but the way that
what I'm going to say is that was what made that content special, was because of that high bar of entry. Correct. Even though it was a fabricated bar, aren't all the challenges in these games fabricated in the first place by game devs? It was a bar that's like, why does it have to be 40 people? They're like, because it can be, it's like, get 40 of your friends. If not, you're a nerd, go do something else. I appreciate that about games.
That kind of goes along the lines of when you had people reporting bugs during the beta test for Classic saying this is broken, and the devs just had to come back and say, no, this is Classic. This is how the game was originally built. This shit was hard.
Don't play a paladin because paladins are fucking bullshit in Classic. Unless you want to be a heal bot in a corner, stop thinking you're going to be a mighty paladin running around with your sword because you're a gimp piece of shit.
So what I think
Malice is going to play a paladin.
What I think is very important about WoW Classic is to understand that this game, this patch, changed and reshaped the face of MMOs as we know it. And that happened, has it been 16, 14 years? How long ago? I don't know.
Too long.
It's been a long time. This game changed the face of MMOs, not because of the super complex systems it brought into it. It did this because it brought a theme park experience. It brought a quest chain. It brought zone progression, and it held your hand just enough that it made it open to so many players. Now these systems have become commonplace in almost every MMO. They truly have. And so what made Classic WoW unique were these systems. Today, the systems you're going to see in Classic WoW are not unique. They are going to be dialed back from the refinements that people enjoy in WoW today. Going back off Zaylin, you're talking about bugs. There are a lot of creature comforts and conveniences that WoW has developed over time based off feedback, and they will be removing some of those things.
Yeah, have
A
fun
lot
going
of those
back to
things.
all the mods you had to run just to play the
the game. You had to list that long, you know. But the point is I'm not going to knock anybody for trying to chase that white rabbit. You know, like everyone has that experience. I think this goes back to us in Dark Age and Camelot Unchained, is they have those rose-colored glasses or whatever of what it was like to play Classic WoW. And I mean, listen, I remember logging in like day one. I logged in, played for like 3 times, and then sold my account to a buddy at high school. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is dumb. And I went back to play Dark Age of Camelot, but then the whole guild moved to WoW. I had to make a second account. Andrew, where you at? You still? I know you're Puka 5000. I know your account name. You can't change it. But the point is, like, I understand the allure, and I understand a lot of experiences were made in Classic WoW for a lot of gamers. And I don't think it's wrong to go back and allow people to relive those experiences. And that's exactly what they're pitching. On top of that, it's not costing them a darn thing. If you're an active WoW player, it's not costing you a darn thing. So this is...
I think that's the biggest change between what some developers are doing and what Blizzard's doing.
Like, they are essentially adding value to their product, right? You look at them from a point of they're in Amazon Prime, they're in Netflix. This is an awesome series that they're adding. You know, they're like, here's another product that your $15 a month gets you. And I think it's a genius idea, because I will say, and I think everyone agrees, that there has been a market always, ever since Burning Crusade, there was a market for private WoW servers.
Yep.
And they are essentially understanding that they can do it better.
But there's
I'm
always
not saying they can or can't.
There's always the eternal argument with WoW as to which expansion was the best. And I know that there's a growing community out there saying, is Classic going to get some of the expansions as you went up, and will it stop at some point, or will it stay the same?
I truly don't know, and frankly, I don't care, because I'm done with WoW. And I don't want to speak for everyone. It's just one of those. For me personally, I kind of cashed down. I was like, whatever with WoW. I think WoW is a great game that serves a purpose, just like Zeeb is after. When you want to bring a community together for 2 months, I think WoW is a title. And then when an expansion hits, WoW is one of those titles that can do it. And I think the problem is, if you go into it expecting anything more, you then go into your struggle phase of trying to keep people playing before content drops. And so I think when you approach WoW,
Plus online.
Well, I think when you approach WoW from a standpoint of, listen, I want to get 2 months of solid gameplay and community building from my guild, I think WoW is a very healthy product. I think this game might stretch out a little longer, because it's going to take a lot of players 2 months just to get max level. That's just the old school WoW experience. It's going to take some people that long.
You're not wrong.
So I have somebody who's arguing, for some reason they're not able to chat on any of the streaming platforms we're on, which, by the way, we're on 3: YouTube, Twitch, and Mixer. Shameless plug, thank you. They're saying it's a brand new game for a huge part of the WoW community, because they started in Kata, or the end of Lich King, when the serious changes. Literally, it's brand new for most of these guys. A totally different experience.
I'm going to make the argument that it's not brand new. It is simply a regression of what you're used to. You are used to a lot of systems, and what you're going to see is you're going to see a game that is not in the refined state that you entered World of Warcraft in. And that's ultimately what you're going to see. You're going to see
you for it.
Well, it's not going to hurt you financially. It's not costing you anything.
Not
but
financially.
When you're talking about a community level, you're talking about when 25 people actually have to pay attention, 40 people actually don't.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of raging. Listen, if you are one of those people that wants to experience what vanilla Molten Core, vanilla Onyxia Layer rating was like, and we talk about this stuff. Like, I talk about it now, and I talk about those experiences I had and what it was like to be at that mess for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours at a time.
It was a commitment.
And we have that. And it was, and we look at it, was like, was that awesome, or was that like the worst? And I don't know, because again, it's one of those things that
Well, at
when
the
you
time,
succeeded,
it
when
was
you
great
succeeded,
because it was something that was unique.
it
Don't get me
was. But when
wrong.
you succeeded, that feeling was just awesome. You know, you remember when you saw Nixia go down, you're like, ah! Like that feeling.
But at the reality, this is the reality. 15 people killed Anixia.
Well,
Everybody else showed up and hit buttons. Like they literally slept in a corner with auto attack on.
yeah, listen, ultimately, yes, you had your part where you had your class leaders, you had your tanks, and you had your healers, and then you had your DPS class leaders who essentially were responsible for running the jobs of their people.
And your paladins who stood in the corner and just had their
Well,
buffs up.
Cried.
like, why did the rep pally
Cried
come? Please send the
intensely.
rep pally away. We understand. Or the holy pally, it's like, I can heal, and he throws the hammer every now and then. You're like, oh my gosh.
Relax,
But-
Thor.
Yeah.
Put it back in your pants.
I guess the point is, it's like, if you want to experience what that was like, as much as we talk about it from a standpoint of nostalgia, if you truly want to know what that was like, then I think WoW Classic will provide that for you. And I don't think it's wrong to tell a person like, hey, don't do it, don't waste your time, because ultimately we were all wasting our time too.
There's
at the
no
end
other
of the
way to
day.
classify what we do except wasting time in an enjoyable manner. That's
Well,
basically what we do.
But we're wasting time for the purpose of building communities and having fun together. Isn't
Yes.
every hobby just a waste of time?
Yes.
So let
Yes.
me ask you guys this question.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Camelot Unchained being the nostalgia game for those of us that created those fond memories in Dark Age of Camelot and all of that. People that their first gaming experience or for serious gaming experience could have been WoW back when it came out. Is this their nostalgia for them? And is that any worse than what we're doing with Camelot Unchained?
Well, as a person who played WoW when it launched, I really feel that it's rose-colored glasses. Because let's move away from the. So, a lot of us are PvP guilds, right? So let's move away from the PvE, which was honestly the one thing that WoW did amazingly well, that was superior to every other game model at the time.
Yeah.
That was the PvE experience. You can't argue that.
That's what made it accessible to everybody.
Whether you're talking about the 40-man, the 25-man, or any other useful content in that game.
Or the 30 million Murlocs that would just rape you out in the wild because...
Yes. Right, yeah.
It's character building, Zaylen.
Right. So that's all great and good, but let's look at the fucking horrendous PvP P model that they had. So basically, you need to be a homeless bum with 0 life to be the top fucking PvPer, because it has nothing about being good. It has to be all about just log time.
Yeah.
On
It was a grind.
constantly.
Yeah.
The fact that it was more PvE to be a PvP leader than it was to actually be a PvE leader, like, Jesus fucking
And
Christ.
even after they implemented honor and PvP gear, the problem is those people that had that, first tier MC, they were in their tier 1, and then they had some Anixia gear on top of that. And don't even get me started on Blackwing Lair, but those people, when they went out into PvP, they had so much more sustain than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you couldn't scratch them, and they were just walking all over. But it was an unbalanced nightmare.
Right. Well, and the thing was, the top circle of players literally had to create their own system outside of World of Warcraft to go, okay, I'm going to be the Grandmaster this week. You get Grandmaster next week. And we'll just cycle through it so that we can all get Grandmaster. Because otherwise, that guy over there will just be Grandmaster all the time. Because he has less life than the rest of us.
Yeah, it was definitely a who can play the most. Yeah, and I don't know. And Zaylen, if you want to move us to another game, I don't.
Please do.
WoW is WoW, guys. It's not going to change. They have a method that works for a lot of people.
Real quick. A large portion of my community is playing WoW Classic, and they're playing WoW Classic because they never experienced the original WoW Classic. Once they do, perhaps their opinions
Couple
will
months
change.
tops.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're gonna play for
I'm not
2
gonna.
months.
I'm not gonna. I'm not
I'll
gonna
give it 5.
judge them.
I'll give them 5 months.
I'm
I
not
will
going to
give
judge
that
them because they want that experience that Puka had, Malice had, and I had, and probably Zaylen as well. But the truth is that I wouldn't bash them too hard because the point is still, are you having fun? If they're having fun exploring this new setting, even without the life changes, even with the silly amount of stuff that you're gonna have. Yeah, and yes, fall off. The Blizzard expects a huge drop off because they're realistic.
Yeah.
Because people get tired of a new thing anytime you put it in front of them.
Listen, I'm not going to sit and tell you that. Go back to Nomergon and run through it. Like, you want to see what Nomergon was really like? Go play WoW Classic Nomergon. You go put the
Only if you've got like 2 to 3 hours of free time. Seriously.
Oh my god, that was my favorite.
Look, the only-
finding all those stupid key cards. Go
The
to
only
Nomergon.
the only reason you could get me to play WoW Classic is if WoW Classic Baron's chat returns. Then
Oh,
I'll
it will. Oh, it'll be there.
It'll be there.
then
be there.
I'm in. I'm in.
All right, now
Sorry,
you just told me I need to actually.
Yeah, that balance is like, I got a sub now.
I gotta get my Baron's
Look, I
chat.
got a sub. I gotta get back in the Baron
Okay.
chat.
That
Those
was-
of you
you
those of
go
you
to
that
any-
are putting up with us and watching this stream, do you have any comments or need to refute anything that these jokers have said about these games, whether or not you've loved it, you agree or disagree? Now's your chance to ask or make your statements and they'll respond.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, yes.
I will respond. Well, I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, we got some other games on the horizon, too.
So next
We'll have
week,
time.
next week we will jump into
Oh,
more
goodness.
games.
More
we'll,
games.
We'll have Poison Taco back with us. I know that he is really in love with Star Citizen. So.
Ashes of
Thunderstruck
Creation,
2 should be
Chronicles
free.
of Valyria, all kinds of good times.
Oh yeah, we'll hit them all
I-
and see where the general feeling is. Thunderstruck Trees should be free from Fall Off for you AA people. Narthus likes pie.
And he doesn't wear pants, apparently.
I mean,
Who does? Who does nowadays?
how many of us
I'm
are
not
actually wearing pants
now.
right now? Unsweetened
Well,
tea
we-
is a plot
I'm
by
not
the
wearing
devil
pants.
worship to overthrow the South.
Yes, it is.
Puka, can you say oil?
No, I can't, actually. I cannot.
It's
I cannot
Earl.
physically pronounce. I can say Earl.
He
and I can
knows
say-
a guy named Earl, and
I can say
therefore
all.
Earl and oil
that's-
are the same thing.
Yeah, I can say all. I can say bold peanuts.
All right,
I can
guys.
say,
So next week we will pick up where we left off with the games. We'll be starting with SWOTOR, as everybody tells me I have to call it that. I usually just call it Tor. And then Chronicles of Valeria and a few other. Don't shake your head at me,
Jump on
Zeb.
SWTOR right now.
Tor is an old RPG. It was very
Right.
good.
We will pick this up next week as I'm respecting the hour time limit that we have on the
Respecting the
stream.
hour.
Yeah.
SWTOR, single play game you can play with other people.
Next week, see you then. Thank you all
Acts of
for
creation,
joining
Unreal
in. Please hit the follow button up at the top. Thank you. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.